Well, with the UFO conspiracies, of course, back in those marvelous days of the 60s, uh, we were seeing Men in Black and CIA conspiracies in every corner. And whatever was happening, I think all of those of us who were involved in UFO research at the time had several experiences with someone who seemed to be sometimes acting on behalf of the government, and sometimes they really did seem to be extraterrestrials. So again, some of this perhaps was imagination, some of it was paranoia, and then the government, the Air Force, didn't do any favor at all by, I think in some cases, actually, if not silencing, certainly obfuscating the investigations.
Would you say that the government has used UFOs, disinformation involving UFOs to mislead the public and UFO researchers?
You know, after all these years, I'm not really certain. I think in some cases, some investigations were done in a very clumsy and heavy-handed way, and that fed the paranoia at the time. Then in other cases, I think there actually was a deliberate effort to make it appear deliberately as though extraterrestrials were invading us. I think when I went through the Project Blue Book files and did Project Blue Book, edited Project Blue Book, I found many reports in triplicate that were very interesting to me, because it demonstrated clearly that there were members of the Air Force sincerely believed that we were being invaded by extraterrestrials. There were others then that scoffed openly at this. Now, if it was, as some people suggest, that the government deliberately fed the idea of extraterrestrials, or if the Air Force or the investigators, the government, whatever you want to say, was genuinely divided in their interpretation of the phenomena, it spread like wildfire among the civilian investigators. And as I said, I don't think there were any of us during that time that didn't feel that we might have our telephone lines tapped, that people were watching us, people were spying on us, and sometimes we had good evidence that they were.
What would be the ultimate reason for the government to mislead people as far as UFOs go? What is the hidden agenda of all of this?
You know, that's the big... Then, back in the 50s and 60s, we were convinced that, of course, they felt that we simply weren't ready for this. We couldn't... Our entire culture would collapse, our politics, our religion, and as far-fetched as that seems, that actually probably would be a very good reason. I think that as I have explored and grown in this field, I see that that people, the great masses of people, I think would be, in spite of movies like E.T., movies like Independence Day that display this, and in Independence Day, of course, we rally and we defeat the invaders. I think we really know deep inside that if there was a culture that was capable of extraterrestrial, interplanetary flight, and if they were the slightest bit hostile to us, we wouldn't stand a chance. That we would be very subdued, and it wouldn't be like the Series V. I think it would happen almost immediately. So that's why I think we half cherish the image of the E.T. and the cute cuddlies, but then the paranoia of the time, I think, Tim, you said it very well way back when the Berlin Wall collapsed. I don't know if you remember, but in a telephone conversation you said then, now we're going to switch to worrying about aliens. And that's when a lot of these movies came that indicated, once again, not the big monsters that we had in the 50s, but the more subtle type of invasion from outer space.
Some of the conspiracy theorists have suggested that even the abduction phenomenon is being directed by members of the New World Order or by some secret branch of the military.
Yeah. Well, you see, with the abduction, that's the classic, as we were talking before, with invasion. Now, when the Vikings were batting down the doors of Rome, I mean, what's to say? We have to fight because they're going to come in and they're going to rape our women, they're going to subvert our culture, things will never be the same. So what are the UFO abductors doing? They, of course, are experimenting sexually with us. They're implanting embryos and fetuses, and the emphasis is on sex, which I think is extraordinary. Now, I believe in ultra-terrestrials or multidimensional beings, and this phenomena has been going on for centuries. I think it's the same as the fairy lore. What is the fairy myth? They take us to another world, there's missing time, and again, what they're primarily interested in the sexual aspect, and they even exchange children with us. The changeling child is put into the place. So it seems to be, you can say, on the aspect of myth, that is an age-old myth that rallies you in defense of your own kind, your own species, your own nationality, your own culture, in this case your own world culture, or it is an actual multidimensional, extraterrestrial, if you will, species that really is slowly inculcating itself, inbreeding itself into our own species. But then maybe that's how we began. Maybe this began with Neanderthal or Cro-Magnon, and this is how the species progresses. Maybe we are all a little bit from out there, and maybe a little bit we feel the longing, and we feel the binding with this strange force that seems at once to be interacting with us, interbreeding with us, and then trying to take us over.
How about some of the more far-out theories suggested by proponents like David Icke about the serpentwoods, how mankind has been controlled since the beginning of time, that there's really some force beyond what we're actually able to see, some Illuminati, some secret government?
Well, our take on it, if I may say that, in Clone Masters of the Universe, that for Interlight Press, that was the serpent people, the idea of reptilian travelers from other worlds. I first brought up in books in the late 60s and 70s and developed there that they are interacting with us. I don't see it, that kings and queens, are reptilian and change, and that members of our political establishment are sacrificing babies and eating children and so forth. I think,
that was a good stew.
Yeah. But I think there is something.
George Bush in particular.
Yeah, George Bush. I think there is a great deal of truth in the idea that we are interacting with a reptilian species, or that we did centuries ago or eons ago. I think the idea, the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, and the culture bearers of nearly every civilization has been reptilian or amphibian. So I think there is a basic truth that's in our somehow genetic memory.
Well, we're here on Clear Lake in Iowa with Sherry Stager, all bundled up, and Diane Tessman, whose blonde hair shows through, and the color meter is really going off the scale with this green snowsuit that she's wearing. And we're waiting for Brad to show up any minute. But this is actually this is actually the famous Clear Lake, frozen over now. No, it's frozen over now, but this is the spot where in 1959, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper took off from the Surf Ballroom, which still exists here in this town, and they got caught in a snowstorm and went down on the other side of the lake, a sad and tragic moment in the history of rock and roll. There we go. And Brad has just shown up here. We're taking a brief break from our weekend of videotaping interviews and freezing our nubs off just for you people in the warm states. So let's go and venture out on the ice.
Yes, you bet.
Well, I've heard, Brad, that you can walk on water, so...
It has to get a little colder before.
I don't know, it's pretty cold out here.
Yeah, it's colder though.
Yeah, there's like a break.
I believe you could sing Ramumba Babumba, whatever here. This is... this is...
Bye-bye, Miss Miracle.
Here we go. I should be walking backwards. Well, I'll follow you guys.
Follow us. Well, we'll follow Brad, because
I'm trying to sign Brad up to be in our next Mr. Creepo video. For those of you out there who haven't seen our Mr. Creepo videos, they're slightly different than our conspiracy and New Age products. And I am Mr. Creepo.
Mr. Creepo.
Yeah. Wait, we've lost. Okay, here we go. All right. Hey, see, I'm out here. When you have to be your own producer, cameraman, director, and interviewer, this is what you get. But Sherry's taking over the helm, so now I'm going to go out on the ice.
So momentarily.
Whoa, okay, we're here in the back of Brad and Sherry Hansen Steiger's limousine, headed to look for the memorial site, I believe you would call it, near Clear Lake, Iowa, where Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Buddy Holly went down in the famous plane crash back on February 3rd, 1959. And Sherry is up there looking at the map. Hold up the map here, Sherry.
Trying to figure out
Okay,
where
there you
we're
go.
going.
There's the map, and kind of dark in here, so you can't see the map really too.
Oh, I have a contribution to make. When I lived in Ireland, the Irish were singing, as they drank all night, they were singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie. And they knew it was about Buddy Holly, and so the fame of the crash spread around the world. And they're singing about it in Waterford, Ireland, as we speak.
Well, then we should go by the surf ballroom.
And this, of course, is my lake.
Frozen over today, as we are. La 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 bamba. I'm getting all kinds of warning lights here.
If Buddy Holly were alive today, he'd be up in his 70s,
flirting with you at the bar.
and he'd be doing bebop specials on PBS.
Probably
He'd
right.
be in the bebop group or the shoebop or whatever that is. Trying to earn a living from.
Maybe there's something to be
clubbing.
said. Maybe there's something to be said about dying in your prime.
There probably is.
But not much.
Not much personally. But goodness.
Aging is not for sissies, we know this.
No, aging is a bitch.
Yeah, well, the four of us have managed to hold on to.
Oh yes, dynamic views.
We haven't discovered the
Okay,
secret.
and now we're in Buddy Holly Place.
Yeah, there's Buddy Holly Place, and we're coming up on the surf.
The surf.
Here it comes.
World's famous.
Well, it might be actually the oldest continuously run.
But didn't it just burn down?
No, I don't think so.
It didn't burn down recently?
No?
Oh, I must have dreamed that. Maybe it's going
Uh-oh.
to. Why did I do that?
Has religion been shaped for us to hide some of this from the public?
Well, I think there again, without treading on toes, I think we can see here again the symbol of Christianity is a fish. I think we have that relationship between the water aspect of the water, that we may have come from the sea, that we may have come, that our culture bearers came from the sea via the stars. We have this, and the serpent that Moses extends in the desert, the idea of the serpent as a teacher, as an instructor, is multicultural. And the interesting thing about it is that an actual snake itself, poor creature, is really very helpless and not that intelligent, and they can't hear very well. They sense with their tongue. So what is it that a serpent would be wise, that a serpent would be teacher, but it may be someone who appeared as a serpent or as a reptilian being that came from the stars or came from somewhere else, another dimension, another time spectrum, and interacted with us throughout our civilization.
Many of the great literature of the ages have talked about these hidden races or these underground world. Do you think that clues have been supplied to mankind from time to time?
It's fascinating, again, how multicultural the idea of a species beneath the surface of the earth. Now, some people can theorize that represents the hidden self, the unconscious, the hidden self, and the layers of our intellect, and that is the emotional self. But again, there has to be some reason why, from the earliest time, we have looked to creatures under the earth and from the stars. Now, again, as whatever credence you want to put in some of the contactee literature and some of the sightings, not contactees, those who regularly report them, but people who made sightings, of course, of UFOs coming from within the earth, coming from within the sea. And there's especially the sea, I think, is a natural hiding place. But the idea, Agartha and the ancient serpent people, the Naga of India. I mean, always this is a serpentine race that lives, but yet very handsome, very intelligent, that appears below the surface and thrives below the surface of our earth. Again, whether it's a symbol for the inner self, or the self that can be revealed, or again, an actual species that we've been interacting with, the wise ones from the caves.
Well, why doesn't Orthodox history or religion not teach the people about this, about these other races that have coexisted?
Well, I think we are learning more and more about other races, other species, and I'm fascinated by the early history of humankind. We've always believed that we've progressed in an orderly kind of ladder situation, and now anthropologists suggest that there may have been as many as 7 hominid species coexisting on Earth at the same time, in which it appears Homo sapiens, our particular species, emerged triumphant. Well, did we, or did we absorb these other species or races, if you choose to use that word? Why don't the religions teach about them? Well, in fact, many of them do. I mean, we find this in the Hindu religion. We talk about the great battles, about the Vimanas, the flying machines, the people from many different levels of what shall we say, existence interacting.
How about any like famous cases we might have known, heard of?
No, but just kind of steady sightings.
Yeah, that's what this guy, he was coon hunting one night,
Yeah,
another night he was on patrol, and the
Those
blue
are the
lights
kind of
thing.
stories.
Open spaces too, out in farm.
Those are the stories you get. Even my brother-in-law, wasn't into this. He'd seen them, and he had his neighbors come over and tell me about it.
What?
When my dad was alive, a farmer said, boy, it comes around so regularly you can set your watch by. My dad, he was a good Iowa farmer, Norwegian Lutheran.
Right.
if you can't see it or taste it or touch it. It
Yeah,
just
that's
isn't
why I'm
there.
kind of shocked that.
Boy, when they came, someone gave him one of the police officers gave him some binoculars, and I was afraid he was going to give himself black eyes the way he watched it. And then as we drove home that night, he said, "Well, you know, I've never talked about it, but I've always believed that there's life in outer space." He says,
Supposedly, when I was 7, that on the farm near St. Ansgar, that a craft came down, and I first encountered Tybus, I guess, or beings, and I'm really myself every day kind of skeptical because the area is so frozen chosen Lutheran that you figure, well, there's never been a spaceship within
"Wouldn't dare come."
within 2,000 miles of this
But,
place.
Diane, just think, maybe there is life.
We're following the map that Sherry has in her hands, looking for the memorial site. And we're going past some grain bins, but we've been going past grain bins for the last half an hour, so...
There's nothing else that I will.
So, fence. Where's the first fence?
I think, Brad, I think this is another Roswell site out here.
Yeah, I think so.
Whoops.
Are we looking for a fence?
Well, grain
There's
bins.
kind
There's
of a
some
fence,
fence.
but that's a fenced-in pig yard.
And here's some fence.
So maybe that's the fence. First fence row.
Big Bopper, if you're up there, give us a sign. Boom. The hood of your car comes down a foot or something.
I don't know, to go out and walk in that field, I think would be...
Yeah, that doesn't really.
Who's going to do that?
Small memorial
Well,
too.
half mile we have to walk that way.
How far does your Zoom work? Maybe the Zoom will.
Well, it depends on whether it's, like when you say small memorial, what does that mean? A headstone, a little stone that's in the
Yes.
ground, flat, then you won't find it.
They
Yeah.
don't even have a picture of
We've
that.
seen pictures of it,
Yeah.
of course, every time they do the Buddy Holly spears.
Yeah, they do make a track out here.
So, this is a corner. I mean, this is a French row.
Right.
But it says.
I'd be happy to lend you my
along-
camera. You can go out there.
Oh, there's another fence row. It says walk along the fence
The whole
row.
place is fence rows.
Yeah, so...
Well, some people have suggested, some conspiracy theorists have suggested that the technology that we see in the sky, these UFOs, are not really interplanetary, that there has been an alternative energy form, either teleportation or anti-gravity, that the New World Order or secret branches of our own government have been working on over the years, and they try to hide that with mysterious lights in the sky and making the public think that we're being visited by extraterrestrials.
Yeah, I think you have to give credence to that possibility. And I think here again you can build a strong case for a conspiracy of using lights in the skies to mass technology. I mean, we know with the stealth and other aircraft that have been perfected that people saw those, people got glimpses of them, and the Air Force was more than happy to say, well, and help spread the rumor that it was UFOs, that they've come from another world to mask what they were doing. The time travel technology, again, from all we understand about physics today, is that it is currently impossible for more than a few seconds. Now, mentally, and I think in the spirit, I think time travel happens a great deal. Numerous accounts of people who have seen and witnessed a scene from the past and then be able to document it. Some cases battles have been seen and people have had the presence of mind to write down the sequence and then matched it against the actual battle, and it was precise. So these things have happened. There are classic paranormal cases of viewing the past. Now, viewing the future, I think people have had those visions too, and they've probably, some of our great inventors and geniuses have translated their visions of the future into something that we could use in contemporary times. As far as a conspiracy of this regard, I think we have to give certain credence to a conspiracy
that was very individual. I mean, among certain alchemists, among certain people who had perfected a technology and for various reasons wanted to keep it quiet, wanted to keep it secret so that it wouldn't be stolen from them or that it wouldn't be misused. Some people of technology, believe it or not, do have a conscience and are fearful that some inventions will fall into the wrong hands. So I think perhaps there have been small groups of people that have kept technological advances secret and private and used it for their own welfare.
What do you see as the positive things that people should be looking for in the near future, and what are some of the negative things that might be bearing down on us as a civilization?
Well, I'm just amazed because being a cockeyed optimist from youth, I somehow saw the year 2000 as that there would be no prejudice, there would be no dogmatism, there would be no ethnic cleansings. Now, in the year 2000, in the present time, we see the forces of fundamentalism and perpetuations of old traditions and customs that should have been outmoded long ago in terms of our thinking, in terms of people thinking they are exclusive, that they are better than other people. I'm just amazed that this continues. So what we have to focus in the future is education. We have to go back to a very basic form of people understanding philosophy, people really reading, people not just going to the computer and playing computer games. We have to recognize our humanity. We have to recognize our oneness. And we have to recognize that if we are going to survive as a species, it will be because of our cooperation. It will be because of our recognizing and celebrating our similarities and not our differences.
Wouldn't you say then that some of our founding fathers did have the secret information that they passed on among themselves?
I think our founding...
And that they might have gotten it from a higher uplifting source?
I don't want to be... I suppose, in a sense, I would understand those who called the United States, as many secret societies have, the New Atlantis. Atlantis was an ideal society that may or may not ever existed. I suspect some planetary culture did exist at one time. But I think the ideals and the inspiration, and I have to be very careful on this because we'll go right back then to what I think we should guard against, that we can't say that America is enlightened and guided by God any more than one football team can claim God is on its side more than another. But I think we had in our early years, and I think we have always had in America, Columbus believed that the land he founded was a place where those in the last days would come. So we as a culture, and in the beginning, from the Revolution to the Civil War, we have always been an end times oriented society, culturally and religiously, and this has been very subtle. But this is our entire nation, you know, the frontier preacher. This has been a part of our culture that isn't really recognized today, is the foundation of who or what we were and what we thought we were has driven this nation, and we struggle between being what we think we are, a true nation of God, under God, and we see now a violent reaction to eliminate that concept and to focus on the totally secular. And I think, you know, that again we have to recognize our spiritual foundation, our spiritual roots, and the guidance that those true leaders who truly tune into the source have left for us the footsteps to follow and to build this nation.
but it can't be on superiority. It has to be on the true America, and that is one of brotherhood and sisterhood.